is not understanding how your audience wants to or should be buying what you're selling. So
That's fair.
I'm going to say is absolutely 100% rooted in empathy. Like people always want, give me all the data, give me all the numbers. Like if you look at all the numbers, they don't say anything. They can only prove your hypothesis. My favorite little story with the idea versus execution is when people complain about modern art. And they'll say, I could have done that. My dog could have done that, but they didn't.
That's a good idea. That's a good point.
Yeah. That being said, rolling up my sleeves.
I knew you were going to be pure entertainment. I was so excited for this. Yes. Welcome back, everybody, to the Founders Corner. In today's episode, I have a very special guest. Her name is Justyna McCaig, and she has been advising and working with startups, especially on the non-technical side. But she has been working with B2B tech marketing for years now. And now she's doing advisory specifically for startups and works with technical founders, which is exactly the opposite to us, which we work with non-technical founders. So welcome, Justyna. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. I hope I didn't butcher that intro too poorly.
No, that's fantastic.
Thanks. You're too nice.
You can always Google me.
Yeah, Googling is perfect. That's how everybody does it anyways. I don't think anyone really pays attention to those intros. Justyna, I'm super excited to have this conversation with you because, you and I had our little, session off camera. And I literally was like, I wish I was just recording this because we went on a couple of tangents. We went on. So, I love when I can have those conversations with people. But let's stay focused at first. So you work specifically with startups and you're more into the B2B marketing stuff. That is one thing I'll tell you right now as founders, that is the number one challenge. Tell me more about it. Like, what do you see happening in that world? Why is it so challenging?
So I think one thing that trips people up is differentiating too much B2B from B2C, thinking it's so different. B2B people can't understand B2C, B2C people can't understand B2B. And I totally think that's the incorrect way, in a very limiting way to look at it. I'll kind of dive into a little bit about that. And two is not understanding how your audience wants to or should be buying what you're selling. So
that's fair.
We'll maybe touch on a little bit about like a sales-led approach, a community-led approach, a product-led approach, and all these different strategies of how you go to market and how you plan to sell your product really matters. And it really matters about who you should hire, what tools you should be using. It really sets you up for success. But getting that first piece wrong can really hinder your growth. And you might have a great product, but not be selling it right. And then just be tearing out your hair about like, why is it not selling?
And to your point, I think a lot of founders didn't know how to differentiate those sales avenues, because you're totally right. And it's funny, we go into these workshops all the time, and when we're talking to startups, they're always like, yeah, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I'm like, you're a startup. You have to realize you lack the resources. Yes. And in order to lack the resources, you need to understand which one is probably going to work best for you. And okay, I may be wrong. You're allowed to correct me, but I call it like make the best educated guess as you can, but it's a startup. How do you make an educated guess like that?
So great place to start. Because I think the educated guess, I'm going to say is absolutely 100% rooted in empathy. Like people always want, give me all the data, give me all the numbers. Yes, but I firmly believe that data and numbers will either justify or maybe lead you in a different path, but they cannot give you the starting point. It's too much. Like if you look at all the numbers, you're just they don't say anything. They can only prove your hypothesis. If you're following along with me here. So understanding what challenge, and this is sort of back to call it like startup 101 is what's the problem you love? What's the problem you're solving? And who is that problem actually affecting?
Right.
So I'm going to give two very different examples because it really, I think on the B2B side, it really highlights, I think, the challenge of deciding how you're going to do marketing for a company. So let's say startup A is selling a new tool for pet groomers. maybe it's some sort of, POS system, some sort of customer tracking.
Sure.
They want to sell to pet groomers.
Yep.
You have to consider there's a lot of them. They're often small businesses. There are a few very large players, but you have to understand that market and then understand, okay, now you've differentiated maybe small or big, maybe you're going for the small guys. Like, talk to those people and understand what channels they're on. Understand, are there groups that they're, speaking within? Are there trade associations that they join?
Is that not a phenomenal idea, just to go talk to your customers? And
Right?
I don't know why startups don't do this. No one does it.
Okay, can I tell you, and this is going to be my biggest pet peeve, and it's
probably the same as mine.
I've been guilty of it. And here's the thing, I've been guilty of it. The bigger the company, when I was an employee within a company, and the bigger the company was, absolutely 100% got funneled away from this. It is very, it's not difficult, but it is hard for marketers to go talk to people because it's not their job. They're told that it's not your job. Don't be like, your job isn't to call people. Go talk to sales. They call people. But if you talk to sales, you're getting there's a filter there, and you're not going to have the questions answered that you actually want answered.
And that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
But as a founder, I expect you to be a sales guy. So you're not just a marketing guy, right?
Absolutely.
So why is it that they won't go out there and have those conversations with their potential clients? Because that happens all the time. And when you talk to them, you can almost tell the reason they don't do it is because they're very scared of them stealing their idea or someone picking up their idea. And you're just like, no one really cares that much about your idea. I mean, they probably even had the idea themselves, right? The problem is the execution. The idea, you can find anybody with an idea. Everybody has an idea. And you always get I have friends as well that are sitting on their couch and something pops out on a commercial, right? And they go, I had that idea. Thanks.
Right?
It's about the execution. It's not just about having the idea. Anyone can have ideas.
My favorite little story with the idea versus execution is when people complain about modern art. And say, I could have done that. My dog could have done that, but they didn't.
That's a good idea. That's a good point. You only had the idea because you just saw it and it came to your head. You're like, that could have done that. I get a lot of those too, where people are like, oh, that's easy. I could have done that. Well, then why didn't you? Especially on social media.
Yes. But to highlight or to even drive that point home is that even if there is an idea, it doesn't mean it can't be executed differently or for a different segment.
100%.
Or you can just be a little bit better.
100%.
You know what? Tell everybody your idea. Tell everybody. You don't have to give away the secret sauce. You're not giving away the code behind a product, or you're not giving away the differentiator that makes you, the 3 key features that are making you extra special. But it's give them the idea so that you can find, and not just, you can give people your idea, but then talk to the people who would not just be using it, but would be buying it. I think that's number 2. That's the big problem about the challenge founders really experience is your buyer also the user?
Right.
Because if they're not,
yes, good point.
That's
good point.
That's a different sell.
Because sometimes on the B2B world, you're selling to the CEO because it gives him the benefits and he's the paycheck. But the people who are actually using it every single day are the operations people, the managers. The good point.
I would argue there's one more level of complexity where you're selling to a middle manager who will not be necessarily using it. They're just going to be,
watching it.
Have an overview.
Watching it.
But
we call it watching it.
They still got to get approval for budget above and make sure that the people below like
That's
it.
Right.
And now you've got 3 people in a sales cycle. And guess what? All the Google ads in the world aren't going to sell your product anymore.
No.
Now you need a salesperson.
So you know what's funny? We've been in those situations, right? Us as Corridor, where we work with businesses, and then the CEOs, we benefit the CEOs, right? The end of the game, but they're not using the software, they're not using it day to day, so we always have to design for them. So what ended up happening is one of the the users came to us and was like, hey, look, we need this, it's desperate times, blah blah blah. I don't know how I can convince my team, my management team. And we ran ads because we knew they were running they were comparing us to like SAP or Oracle
Oh,
and stuff like that. And we
mhm,
ran ads on here's why we're better and here's our
right.
benefits and here's where they fall short. And we
Yeah.
like nonstop ran ads for like 3 months. All of a sudden, the guy makes an introduction on us and goes, "Hey, like I have this company called Corridor. Like, I've heard of
Mhm.
them. Where have I heard them from?" And they just thought we were a massive organization,
That's
and
awesome.
strictly because we just kept,
Yeah.
blasting ads
You know
against
what
them
that
on
is?
LinkedIn.
That's an account-based approach,
Yeah.
and I think
We
also
call that
it
guerrilla
could have been
marketing.
it was yeah, it's that too. But you know what? So I would say here's another nuance to marketing that I think people who or founders who have companies who are selling to more enterprise, so they're sort of trying to punch above their weight.
Yep.
Like you don't have the money or resources to throw
Compete.
thousands
No.
thousands and thousands of dollars away on, let's say, SEO and Google ads and Facebook ads, and because you probably know like your 5 maybe 10 accounts that you should be like working right now, put marketing and sales folks to create the best content for those 5 or 10,
Yep.
and then figure out like what are the channels that those 5 or 10 care about, because like otherwise it's so inefficient. It like know
Yep.
your product and know who you're selling to, and if you're selling to enterprise and they're in the dozens realistically that you can actually reach, like think really hard about where your money's going. And I mean, they know that. Like they know they don't have everywhere to no throw cash everywhere. It's just some things are for the big brands for a reason because it's
Yes.
slow. There isn't a direct like there's no direct link. It makes good feels, but you know what? It doesn't create a handshake, and you need the handshakes. And sometimes that means trade shows, that might mean local events, that
By the
might
way,
mean
trade shows
yeah.
were great. I don't know
Yes.
why everyone like knocks on them. They
Mm-mm.
work
Great.
wonderfully. And a lot of
Absolutely.
people are like, "Oh, that's so old school. I probably get more money out of my Google Ads." I'm like, "You probably won't." Like,
Won't.
you can have a booth for $5,000,
Yeah.
and you pay the 5,000. You all of a sudden are in direct contact with
Yeah.
thousands of your potential buyers.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
conferences are quite unique. Like they're like very niche specifically, right? Like there's
Uh,
property management, there's oil and gas ones, like there's property, real estate, right?
yep.
And people don't realize the power that comes with that, with the
Absolutely.
booth.
Okay, I'm gonna give away like a free tip.
Ooh,
Use
okay.
free like
Free
real
tips. We
because
love free tips for our founders.
free tip. Depending on what stage you are in your startup journey, but if you've got a few customers already, try as early as possible to make your way to a large channel partner. So, for
Okay.
example, if you're working with AWS, Microsoft Azure, any of those, like that's in the cloud computing space. If you're working with some of the big EHRs if you're in the healthcare care space.
Mm-hmm.
So pick your big central players, try to partner up as much as possible, and wiggle your way into their user
Network.
conferences. Yep.
Yeah, and I think QuickBooks is very famous for that. A lot of people, what they ended up doing was they built off of the QuickBooks platform, and then they
Yep.
they go into their conferences, and
Yep.
then what ends up happening, if they grow fast enough, QuickBooks just buys them out. So it almost becomes a
I
funnel for
wouldn't complain.
QuickBooks. And exactly, right? It becomes a
Yep.
funnel for QuickBooks, so that benefits them. They grow a bigger
Yep.
ecosystem, so it benefits their user. And then you, on the other hand, you get access to millions of users right off the bat. I think partnerships is one of those low key things that really no one really thinks about when building a
Yeah.
marketing strategy.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And it's one of those things that you can scale your presence and scale your message by doing one piece of content, one piece of work, something that you can present yourself in a good light. And here, if you've got 2, 3 good partners who have an active and loyal user base, whether that loyalty is because they're the only players in the market or they're just the biggest one in the market or, whatever it is, now you have a captive audience that you don't have to work hard for. You've already got your content. It's just a matter of sharing. So,
What?
I mean, as much as possible, like scaling doesn't always mean the same thing. And on the flip side, it's if you are, let's say, a new flower delivery service, guess what? Yeah, Google ads and Facebook ads and Instagram, those things might be, but it might be more about choosing one channel that you can dominate. Like, you
Yeah.
can't do everything. Figure out, like, as specifically as possible, like, paint the picture of the person who you're selling to in your head. Get to know your 5 best customers, and like, how do you sell to those 5 customers so that they love you? And that,
Yeah.
like, and then it becomes about repeating.
And we always we've mentioned it multiple times in this podcast, is create that product advisory board. It's so
Yes.
important. And actually,
Yeah.
Emma came up with that.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
She actually mentioned it for the first time, so we're coining it as her term.
Oh, Emma.
But Emma. But yeah, so Emma coined that term, product advisory board, and now we literally use it religiously, because we always said, go get a customer. People are always like, what do you mean? Like, what do you want me to do with these customers? Like, I don't have a product. And now when we say product advisory board, immediately they're like, oh, so you want me to like kind of coordinate with them the products? And I'm like, yes. What a novel idea, right? Like,
Yes.
because they'll be openly and honest with you when, especially if you're solving a problem with them, they'll probably not pay you. And there's some people out there that talk about like, go get payment from them, otherwise it's not a customer. I'm like, you can't get no one's really willing to give you money unless they've got a product coming your way. And then they go, well, then you're not solving a big enough of pain. And then I respond with, there's a product for everything these days. You really can't solve that many pains, right? But having a product advisory board, what it does is it allows you to build a product where they're pretty much telling you what they would buy.
Yeah.
Directly.
Yeah.
They're pretty much explaining to you, this is what I need. So if I'm selling myself on the product and telling you to build me something along the lines, how would I not buy it? It just doesn't make logical sense.
Absolutely. 100%. And let me say, so the whole pain, solve a problem that's big enough, people are willing to throw money at you. Some of the biggest companies out right now, I'm sorry, AI is solving what problem that people were asking to be solved.
And that laziness.
Like, AI could do some
laziness.
Right. But like, there's so many, okay, for example, HubSpot, great platform. They were solving, like, people weren't asking for that problem to be solved.
Correct.
They figured out something new. They figured out a new way to do it, promote it in a different way, and it's enormous now. But
yeah, they were one of the first to do inbound marketing. That's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Were people like screaming that I don't know how, I need a platform, how to do marketing differently? No. They had their finger on something, on the pulse of something that could be done differently, needed a revamp.
You can say a lot about like a lot of these, like Salesforce. What business did they have to bring out CRM, customer relation? That was their entire model at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Airbnb, you can always, like, no one was looking at going, I'm going to rent out my house, right?
No.
Like,
yeah.
You're totally right. I mean, it's going to be one of those things where, your client base is going to only be your starting point, but that doesn't mean that they're going to,
Yeah. Now, Airbnb, they weren't even, it wasn't a house or room. It was literally
couch.
Your airbed.
Yeah.
Airbed.
Couch.
Yeah.
Breakfast. I think what was they originally named? They were originally something couch. Oh, couch surfer. Couch surfer or something like that.
And then it became airbed and breakfast.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
You don't even get a bed. It's an airbed.
Airbnb, that's right. Airbed. Yeah, airbed and breakfast. That's right. Yeah. So, yeah, and what would you say is the number one mistake you see all startups make, especially at an early stage? Let's focus on the early stage ones.
It's spreading themselves too thin with the thing in marketing. That we just talked about. Yeah, in marketing, absolutely. Yeah. Because there's very few teams that I've seen that haven't had it laid out to say, here's the table stakes things that I need done. Like, here's everything that we need to do. And it's sort of like, do we?
No, do we really?
Because
that's the response I get when clients come to us and go, this is all the stuff I want to build. Do we really? I love that. Okay.
And it's harder, and I get it, because for someone who's maybe not marketing focused, or maybe hasn't been digging into those weeds for a while, the examples that you have ahead of you and the things that you look at to say, I want to be like Airbnb one day, for example, you see them doing everything and you think that's why they're successful. And the reality is it's no, they're doing everything now because they have the money to and the scale to.
Correct.
If you look back at their very early roots, that is absolutely not what they did.
Nope.
You know, so
they were on Craigslist. That's what they were doing.
Right.
A lot of people don't realize the starting stories. A lot of people don't.
The real starting story.
Yeah, here's the best part. DoorDash, they're a big company, right? They're massive. Yeah. Do you know how they penetrated the Canadian market?
No.
I wonder if you know this. So what they ended up doing was, instead of hiring a bunch of sales guys, hiring a bunch of people to go out there and start building relationship partnerships, what they ended up doing is they built a call center. Okay. Because they realized call centers are cheaper than the sales guys. So they created a call center. Essentially, every time you made a food, and they put all the restaurants, all of them. Okay. Yeah. Every single one of them. And every time you did an order, the call center would actually pick up the phone, call the restaurant, order your food, and have their driver go pick it up.
Get out.
And then after 6 months, they went to every single one of these restaurants and said, look, I've generated X amount of revenue for you. So whether you come on my platform or I take you off. Of course, all of them said yes. Why wouldn't you? Because now you've proven it, right? But that was manual work. Same with Skip the Dish. Skip the Dish did the same thing. They did everything manually. You put in an order through your app. It came as an like in their little call center thing. Yeah. Call the restaurant, book it. Like a lot of stuff is done manually where you just have to grind through it, man. Like you don't have to build everything out right off the bat to be perfect and exactly like Airbnb.
So I'll share a story. This was like quite a few years back, but I think nonetheless, I think it's a pretty good case story in how it can be done, or sort of, the really small investment you can do to test things. And the scale, I think, is relevant for founders, because talking about Airbnb is
yeah, it's massive.
Let's talk.
It's a behemoth.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's be realistic, Justyna. Come on.
Let's be realistic.
Let's be real.
So real numbers, real things that happened. I worked at a startup called RideCo out of Kitchener-Waterloo.
I've heard of them.
They're fantastic. Now, they started, I think I joined them, maybe they were a year or two in.
Okay.
And I was their marketing, number one, branding,
the first hire.
Strategy, growth. I was it. There was really super people.
And that's kind of B2C, right? That was a B2C company. Yes.
It's a B2C transportation. They really were fighting Uber in Kitchener-Waterloo, trying to expand into Toronto, trying a few different things.
What was their leverage? What was their big appeal?
So true shared rides with efficient routes. So they were doing they were combining rides in efficient ways. So the idea is to have a perpetual ride. A car never really has to stop because that's where the waste is, right? So they would be able to route. You might have a person on half your route. They get dropped off. You get dropped off. And it was really efficient. It worked really well.
So their algorithm was their biggest sales thing.
Exactly.
Got it.
So B2C, and we're trying to come up with a way to have sustained continuous growth, because we were doing all the things, Facebook ads, we were on Twitter, Google, all the
Twitter is an interesting one.
This is so long ago
before Elon.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah. It shall be by.
Yeah.
I can't. Okay, I won't mention it again. It's So we were on platforms and sort of doing the very typical, but lots of personality in the advertising and the marketing that we were using, really trying to build a brand voice, had low acquisition costs. At the time, I remember finding somewhere online that Uber was spending over $200
per ride.
Customer.
Wow.
Per acquisition, new acquisition cost. Bonkers. We were nowhere near that. But nonetheless, I think as a small startup, it was
all because they were probably calculating their subsidies and stuff into it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was like 200. That's aggressive.
insane.
But
Well,
with
they
the
were burning money
subsidies,
for
that
so
makes
long.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And one of the we were definitely under 100. I want to say we were under 50, but nonetheless, it was still more than what we wanted to
Spend.
spend per customer. Uh, I had, and I mean, this was maybe like 3, 4 weeks out. I'm not in Kitchener-Waterloo. I'm just outside of Toronto. But my little birdie told me that there was like buzz at like the big, like the festival, a big music festival. It wasn't just something I wasn't aware of. Was like coming in 4 weeks, and I'm like, oh, we're gonna take that right out of an Uber playbook
Yeah.
of try to be like there like crazy.
Like
So I
dominate.
literally I called up the promoter of the concert and was able to like do an influencer deal with him. He set aside a whole row for just RideCo branded cars.
Wow.
Um, like this thing cost us in terms of promotion oh my god, we reached so many thousands and thousands of
Yeah.
people. I want to say it cost me maybe 2 grand.
That's nothing.
And by the way, like
Wow.
that night, or the servers were overwhelmed. Our whole team was up like past midnight trying to like service the demand because we had never in our wildest dreams thought that that could happen. Like it was amazing. It was
Yeah.
the coolest thing. $2,000, and it was because it's like, oh wait a minute, learn from the very little, the early stories of the people that you're trying to beat.
Yeah.
That's how
If
Uber started. Uber started with
if it
concerts, and
works,
it
if it
works.
works, why wouldn't you
You
do it again?
absolutely like beg, borrow, and steal the best ideas. Everybody keeps talking about how you need to be innovative. No, you don't. You need
Yeah.
to learn from other people's mistakes. Don't make your own. That's a stupid
Yeah.
thing that people keep saying is learn from your mistakes, but you don't need to make them. Learn. Everybody's done it before.
Or you can just read and learn from that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
What a
And do
novel
it.
idea
And
there
do it.
too. And you know what? It's kind of funny because that's exactly why second time founders actually get funded more so
Yeah.
than first time founders. With second time founders, it's always like, all right, you've made whether it be successful or not.
Right. You've made
Still
your
investors
mistakes.
will look at you and kind of go, okay, you've done the stupid shit. You've done the dumb stuff. Okay, you've
Yeah.
learned. So,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like sitting there, you're like, man, if you just had like a coach, and this is like the
Yeah.
whole motto of this podcast, it's like,
Yeah.
why make those mistakes? Just listen to this podcast and you can probably already be 10 steps, 20 steps ahead of everybody else who hasn't listened to this podcast, because you're going to get
Absolutely.
ideas and concepts from everyone.
Absolutely. 100%. So if you are trying to be the next whatever with a twist, so whether it is, Uber, Airbnb, whether you're
Whatever.
trying to
You
be
always
the
have to
new,
differentiate. Yeah.
yeah, you want to be the new HubSpot, you want to be the next newest, I don't know, funeral home in a different way, then look at, hey man, lucrative industry,
I know.
ripe for disruption.
I know. It's
Uh,
ridiculous.
Go where people don't go. Like, anyway, look at the big player in the game
And
and try to see what they did and what worked and what didn't.
And you know what's funny? I always tell people, and again, this is something we do in our workshop, is
Mhm.
find the big fish,
Mhm.
understand where the biggest pain is, and just
Yes.
start with a niche. You can steal from the playbook, you can do all that jazz, but start with a niche. Like there's going to be a
Yeah.
massive group of them that hate that company. Try to find out
Yes.
what the commonality is, build that, and they'll come to you, right?
Yeah.
And
And
it's
what a
just,
great marketing opportunity to say, hey, were
Mhm.
you their customer and hated this?
Yep.
Fix that.
We fixed that.
Yeah.
Exactly. Bang
It's
on.
fantastic.
So this is a perfect segue, Justyna,
Yes.
to
Yes.
you are now starting your own little thing.
Yes.
How has that been? Because
Yeah,
you're a
I'm gonna say
non-technical founder.
no. Oh my Lord, no. I try. Now, what I will say, I say, oh Lord, no, but at the same time, I am absolutely hungry for knowledge and like I absolutely roll up my sleeves.
Right.
So
You're
I like
hands-on non-technical founder.
absolutely. So I think partly why I like marketing, at least the way I do marketing, is I want to understand as much as I can within reason, the
Yep.
technical aspects of it, like how that technical aspect affects the customer, and I want to know why. And sometimes you need to get a little into the weeds.
Yeah.
So that being said, rolling up my sleeves.
Roll. I knew
So
you were going to be pure entertainment. I was so excited for this.
yes. Okay. So I there's
Hold on. Here, hold on.
yeah.
Let me just roll it up too.
Yes,
Okay, here we
let's
go. All right, we're ready.
getting the bows on the tables. Yes, so I'm actually working on 2 projects, which
Okay.
is something that people say never do. And I get it because you do need focus. However, there's something that I've
Depends.
experienced. Yeah. Well, if you talk to any sort of accelerate, if you read LinkedIn, it'll be find your focus, cut anything away that isn't that. Just very Shark Tank kind of,
Yeah.
it's cliche. And you know what? Different strokes for different folks. For me, I've found so, like at least in this stage where I am starting at in both projects, it's at the start of building an MVP, doing tons of research by talking to future customers, trying to really dig deep into the problem. Things don't happen as fast always as you hope,
Right.
and so
Always, by the way.
it's
Always.
yes, that has been let's say a challenge because like I'm someone who's like, okay, what's the next thing I need to do so I keep feeling that momentum moving forward? But sometimes that momentum means like, no, I genuinely have to wait for someone to get back to me and I'm not their first priority and
Isn't
I'm
that the
just
worst?
about
As a
me a
founder, that
priority.
drives me mad. I'm like
I
sitting there, I'm
know.
like, okay, I talked to this guy, great proposition. Now respond to me in a day.
No.
And it's 2 weeks later, you're like, dude, my entire business has changed since then. What we talked about has completely changed. You're behind, actually.
Yes. Yes. And I get the sense that it's a lot of founders are like that.
Oh,
We are a
100%.
very
Like, get shit
not
done kind of
squirrely.
people.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So there's two both in stealth projects. One is healthcare focused that I'm working on with a nurse partner, and
Hmm.
we're hoping to make it easier for nurses actually to do their jobs with an AI enabled tool. Um, keep an eye out. You know,
Cool. I'm always
yeah.
keeping an eye out.
Yeah. So I'm excited about that. And on the other, and actually the idea is actually a little bit more baked. It's called Worktown, and it will be providing a scalable solution for designers, graphics animators, people who work with really large computing needs in
Uh
the
huh.
graphics space,
Yep.
and creating a platform for them to be able to scale their operations in a much more easier fashion.
Interesting. Kate, let me ask you
Yeah.
this because
Yeah.
I'm only like, we're kind of sidestepping here, but I'm curious about
Yeah.
what your thoughts are.
Yeah.
Kate,
Yeah.
look, AI is kind of blowing up. Yes, we know it.
Yes.
Yeah, ChatGPT started
We're all
a
gonna die, I
Pandora's
know,
box.
yes.
Yeah, we're all gonna die. Now, the next question I have for you is, a lot of this AI stuff has really targeted the marketing world, right? Writing
Yes.
ads, writing those kind of things. What are
Mhm.
your thoughts around it? What do you think? They're good? They're like, okay, so there's
Yeah.
coding ones too. So
Yes.
there's ones that compete
But
against mine.
marketing has, like, flooded. Marketing is absolutely flooded with AI tools.
And for to be honest with you, I've used the AI no code stuff.
Yeah.
My God, is it bad? Like, it is
Like,
bad. Like, there's a funny meme out there. It's like, hey, developers, you're all fine. AI is out there
yeah.
because guess what? Product managers still can't explain what they want. So like, you can't get a machine to do it if you can't even
Yeah.
explain yourself. You know what I
No,
mean?
and you know what? And that for anyone who has tried, like, I genuinely, if you are a founder and you are about to, let's say, your goal for if you have a marketing department or a person who's working in that sort of capacity, and you're about to say, go use the tools because you'll be able to do 2, 3, 4 x 10x your output. Please try something simple like a product
Simple is
description.
good. You can do all these things with simple. I agree with you.
But even
Anything
then,
beyond simple, it's devastating.
it's devastating. And it's even something like, okay, let's say I created the next best pair of jeans. I don't know. Maybe that's going to be my niche. There's some special fancy schmancy pair of jeans, and
It's
that's my product.
genes that make your butt look good as males. There you go.
Yes.
We don't
Perfect.
have those.
Perfect. It's what is needed. The world needs it. If you were to ask AI to write you an engaging, or edgy product description, you are going to get a blob of everything that's been said
Yes.
reflected back to you.
Correct.
If you are trying to create something new, better, more interesting, how are you going to do that with everything that's already been created? And you're just like, because that's what AI does, is they
Yeah.
look for patterns,
That's
and
right.
then they're like, here's the most likely thing you're asking for.
Correct. That's the whole point of large language processing, right?
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
entire concept of it is the fact that it knows the internet and it just
Yes.
grabs patterns and responds through the
Yeah.
pattern. And hence why everyone's kind of scared, because it's the fact
Yes.
that you don't know, like there's no way to control it, because it can also find patterns in the opposite direction, right? In the
Yeah.
negative and
Yeah.
lying situation. So
Absolutely.
that's the whole
Yeah.
problem, is it is built by humans
Yeah.
for
And
ironically humans.
all the bias of
Exactly.
humanity is also
And
built into it.
humans are naturally biased. Like if
Yeah.
you look at OpenAI, they specifically mentioned do not use, like, it is biased towards white people's names.
Yeah.
Right? Facial
Yeah.
recognition is notorious for not being able to
Yes.
detect properly on, like,
Darker skin tones.
darker skin
It's not.
tones.
Yeah.
So it's one of those scenarios where it's like, yeah, we're there, but like you need to know what you're using it for and how you're using it,
100%.
because it can
100%.
be very dangerous, not in a
Yep.
good way.
No, it could be detrimental to your business if you're not paying attention. It
Yeah,
really, like, it
and
could make you look really bad.
Amazon had to shut down their AI recruiting thing, because
Get out.
here's the problem: they were feeding it the current employees they already had, and they saw the top performers of their current employees, which is not necessarily based on performance or whatever. It could be simply managers bias. They rank these guys
Oh,
up, right? So it would
right.
hire based on that, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, it's making a decision based on your top performer, which is great. The problem is your top
Yeah.
performers are biased based on the manager, based on who you're working under. You know what I
Whole
mean?
bunch of
So
yeah.
females were getting like kind of axed a little bit on it,
Yeah.
on particular jobs. And it's like AI is only doing what humans would do. We just
On a bigger scale.
on a
That's
bigger
all it does.
scale. And
Yeah.
it doesn't care. It doesn't care if it's being judged,
No.
right? We human, like there's people out there who don't like hiring a specific gender or whatever, and they won't say it out loud. They'll just do it.
No.
Right?
Sometimes it's even unconscious bias where they don't
Correct.
realize
100%.
that. Yeah. So,
I've heard people not get hired based on, like, if I've heard some hiring manager be like, if I can't pronounce the name, I'm not even gonna call them.
That is not something that, I've been in the room where that's been said, and
You're not the only
awful.
one. A lot of people say that. And so that's what happens is a lot of foreigners will come here and they have to change. I recommend, if you're looking for a job for top, you got to change your name to like Sam Smith or something stupid, because honestly, it's devastating. Sam Smith. I don't, the SS, I don't know. That's probably a bad initial anyways. But the point is like, AI is based on human bias. I agree with you. And in terms of marketing, it's going to be repeating what's already out there. So there's nothing new. I think it's great for startups because they lack the resources. But long term, not best.
Nonetheless, I would still say be mindful that as a startup, you are unlikely to have a full-time, really strategic leader at the beginning. So you might have someone who's a coordinator, maybe a tactical, someone who
generalists. We call them generalists.
They generally will be like, I want to work, I want to do the stuff for you, but they don't necessarily have the capacity to strategically weed out what you don't, or they might not have the long-term vision that you do. And if you haven't communicated it well, they just are getting stuff done.
Yeah.
They just want to do the things.
Correct.
Volume of output. But the problem with that is, like, AI will give you volume. It won't necessarily make it good.
No, I agree with that. And I think I always tell founders, like, use it. It's really good to just set you up for success. More, to be honest with you, the reason I say that is because it'll do more than they would ever do.
Yes. Yes,
That's how I see
absolutely.
it.
It's a great draft making tool. It's a great thing to get the ball rolling. It might even take care of those tasks of like, if you have I don't know, let's say you have a hardware store, like, yeah, you don't need to sit down and be creative about nuts and bolts and rulers. Like, you do it's just get this stuff done and out.
Correct.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Get it. But when your brand is on the line, when you are trying to sell a really new idea to the public, like, you're still going to have to do the hard work of sitting down, talking to the customer, your potential customer, or people who have influence in the circle you're trying to sell to, and you have to going to be really smart about whittling down the channels that you're going to be using.
Agreed. Could not agree
Yeah.
more. Okay, so just before we close everything off, so number one advice you give to startups, including your experience as a founder yourself.
Never stop talking to the end user.
Love
and never
it.
stop talking to the buyer. They might be different people.
Yes.
One
I
will
like
help
that.
you with make a great product and actually solve something that they're looking to solve. The other one will tell you whether they will buy it.
Mm-hmm.
So
in
even
my
just
opinion,
in
you
yeah.
should build the product for the user, but you
Yeah.
should build the features for the buyer.
Yeah.
Because the features is what will buy
That's
it.
a really good
The
point.
usage of the product is the user. You got to build it for them, how they use it, how they think. It's built around them. So
100%.
I love that advice.
100%.
I'm an advocate of the advice, so that's an excellent point. And then number two, what is the one thing?
Number two.
Yes.
Yes. So here's I'm gonna say it's a little self-serving, but I was actually told this before I started doing my work.
Okay.
Too many times startups go all in on establishing like a marketing team or get a full-time CMO or something, thinking my CMO can do it all. They can't.
Nope.
You might need a part-time CMO and maybe a full-time like generalist. You still need a vision, and if that's not your strength or you don't have the ability to take that strategy on full time, someone who has the experience can do it for you, at least at a part-time basis.
Yep.
You will get your money's worth because that generalist will do it all, but they will do it all, and none of it will be the things that you need, and you'll be burning cash.
I'm an advocate for fractional anything.
Yeah.
Especially at an early
absolutely.
stage. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Okay.
Those are
I love it.
They're great relationship building. You can cut off the relationship when you need to. If you don't, like, it's such a great, like,
what a fantastic plug-in you just did right there. Like it was so like it was excellent. So just so any listeners now, you can see the skill that Justyna has. So I highly recommend reaching out to her. She is specifically designed for tech companies, right? But she gets it, right? So can anyone reach you? How would you prefer being reached out to?
Absolutely. So I 100% highly recommend reach out to me on LinkedIn, Justyna McCaig, Justyna McCaig,
and we'll put the link. We'll put the link in
Click on
YouTube.
Honestly, let's connect. I'm so happy to have conversations, and I'm like, if I can't do it for you, or if it's not my specialty, like, I know a gajillion marketers who I can match you up, because not every marketer is your right marketer.
And as you can tell, she's a very social person. So what she just said is very true.
Yes.
Justyna, thank you so much for taking this time with us. I really appreciate it. Thank you for all the advice for startups, because again, marketing is one of those I call it
everybody
money pits.
can do it until they need to do it, and then it's like, oh shoot, I need some help.
Yep. And then they do it as soon as the product is done, and they're like, we should have done this 3 months ago before the product was done. Yeah. No, I'm with you. So thank you so much for being here. And we'll put your link for the LinkedIn in our description as well, so that everybody has it. Wonderful. Awesome. Thank you so much. To everybody else here at the Founders Corner, thank you all for listening in and listening to me and Justyna basically talk shop, because that's pretty much what it was, you and I doing. And I hope you guys took away some things. If you haven't, if you have, and you know someone that might take some things away from this as well, please feel free to share our podcast. We do this every week, and we're here for you guys as the founders. So please like, share, subscribe. We more than, I can tell you, we very much appreciate it. So until next time, Corridor out.